This is Wild on 7th, your favorite Wild podcast.
Did you guys see this? This is unbelievable. What is that all about, Kinger?
Get in here for the real thing. Like, let's get weird.
Maybe I blacked out trying to figure out what was going on.
Doubt, worry, fear, because that's what we're breaking the mold on here.
Welcome to Wild on 7th, presented by Pilot Games. We're here until it's here.
Welcome back to Wild on 7th, your favorite Wild podcast, as always presented by Pilot Games. Make sure to use their products when you're out enjoying your libations at the local establishments, because when you play, your community wins. Kinger, there hasn't been a lot going on here, All-Star break, bye week for the Wild, so we had to call in a pretty big deal here to join us on the podcast.
Heavy hitter. If you grew up in Minnesota, you know the Modano jersey flap. You probably call him Modo, even though you've never met him. HOF, all-time leading scorer in North America, 1,374 points, 561 goals, 99 cup winner after they stole our heart and took it to Dallas. Mr. Mike Modano, legend, sponsored by Duke Cannon, and this guy's had some great hair over the years. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So if your hair's a weapon or you wish it was, check out Duke Cannon. Welcome, Modo.
I'm a filler for the slow week.
Yeah, maybe. We could talk about Justin Bieber's jacket or have you on, and we picked you. It's a compliment.
Are you talking about the one where he
So
looks
cool.
like a Superman or Super Mario Brothers? Who is that, Toad? Remember the character Toad?
Yeah, he was like powering up.
Yeah, if he just curled into a ball, he'd look like Toad from Mario Brothers.
He does seem like a good guy, the Bieber. I think he was bringing a lot of positive energy to that bench, and you know they're going to win, right? Whoever is the home city, right? So Kachuk last year, of course, the Toronto boys ran the table.
We should get into this, though, because I actually have no clue what you're talking about. I didn't watch the All-Star game at all.
didn't either.
You didn't either?
No.
I didn't have a ton of interest. It's fun to watch and stuff, but in the past, it's kind of been kind of a show, you know, and it's different, and you go back like a couple years when it was like the breakaway challenge and the wigs and all the other stuff, and that kind of lived its life and everything, and it's different and maybe a little bit better now, but I still didn't. I had youth hockey and stuff too, but I didn't take any of that in. How was it?
Give us the synopsis. This is the one thing I want you guys to react to. I'm not going to get it. Me trying to explain what they do in the All-Star game right now to you guys would be hilarious because it's so weird. But Kucherov, this is the thing that was amazing. So Kucherov must have not wanted to go to the game, right? So I think his whole team went to Costa Rica or something. Not only does he have to go, they put him in the skills. He just rolls out there.
Yeah, nonchalant, like didn't care. I heard about this.
Gets booed. He does the whole. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was like the most Russian thing I've ever seen happen. Like, it was amazing. He's getting booed by the crowd. They would have like 3 things you're supposed to hit, and each of them are varying points, and he would just put them in between. So I don't think he's going to have a problem with the All-Star game in the future. So it was. I don't know. Did you see that? Or
I didn't see it, but I heard about it. So he was in the passing competition.
Just
right?
mailed it in. It's hilarious.
So there's 30 guys at the All-Star game, and not everybody is in a skills competition event.
Barely any of them
There was
are in
only
skills.
12.
Yes.
So he's one of the 12.
And begrudgingly.
And then individually, they could win $1 million if they won the skills competition.
Correct. McDavid won $1 million.
Right. But if for the All-Star game, the team wins $1 million.
Shares $1 million.
Yeah.
Correct.
So they're almost incentivized financially
To care.
about the skills competition most.
Yeah. 1 out of 12 chance, and you don't have to share it.
Right. And he just flex on it and kind of says, I'm good.
It was funny. You see it?
Yes, I did see it.
That must go around with the OGs. Like, what were you getting on group text about that?
I just kind of happened to scroll through my Twitter feed or X feed, and I'm like, it's just one of those things you just –
Tough look.
Yeah, it's just hard to watch. And, it's for – you have the luxury of getting chosen to go to the game. I know over the past, like, probably 20 years, there was times where I got selected. I'm like, I'd rather have the time off, get a break. Bob Gainey was saying, Mike's hurt, can't make it. Then it was like, okay, guys are using injuries to kind of use it to get
To get out of
3
it.
or 4 day break. So then Bettman installed a fine. If you're not legitimately injured, you're going to get fined for not going. So then they adapted this bye week for guys who do go. It's all incentivized to make these guys, enjoy the weekend, want to go, get something out of it, get a break. So I'm like, it's really kind of, you're spoon feeding these guys just to hope that they show up, have a good show. In Toronto, it's like, of all places to kind of pull that stunt off, it's not going to fly. The people are too smart. I don't know if he was out all night, Thursday and just carried it into the morning Friday, but it was painful to watch.
Well, you could see where guys get upset about it though too. So like you have Kaprizov who goes there and was there 3 days, played 7 minutes, and then left. Like you could see where a guy would be upset and be like, "Man, I could have been in the skills competition for $1 million. I would have tried harder. I would have done this. I would have done that." But instead, they're turned off by the event because he goes, commits time to where he could have been someplace nice too, and plays 7 minutes, and then that's it, weekend over.
Well, I don't think Crosby showed up for the mock draft the night before. He was in Sun Valley,
training,
skating outside at some rink.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
Relaxing. He flew in, the morning of probably the skills, and so I.
But what I would say about this one, King, or you could probably comment on it before we move on, is it did seem like the guys were enjoying themselves more so than maybe some of the other All-Star games. Because I think that you almost need that for the All-Star game in the weekend to be successful. The guys that are playing in it have to enjoy it and have to like it, and it seemed like they were.
I thought it was fun. They had the crazy jerseys that Bieber designed. You had the Tate McRae, Will Arnett, Michael Bublé got into some sort of drugs. It was fun. The hard thing with hockey, though, is like the world sort of is the world, right? So like all of us are like, oh, Bieber and Tate McRae and this, and I never really know if it's a crossing over, like are other people saying, who's this William Nylander?
Yeah, is it growing the game?
Maybe. I mean, that seems like what they wanted to do with all of this stuff.
Yeah, like Taylor Swift is certainly growing the game of football. Like I saw something the other day is $330 million in it would be equivalent to like marketing dollars that the NFL has gotten off of Taylor Swift, like a huge bump in that regard.
And I almost feel like the Biebers and the Will Arnett's and the Tate McRae, that's almost like feeding the fish that are already in the bowl. And it was like really fun for us, but I don't know if other people were checking it out. I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah.
I like it. The Toronto kids were having fun. I wanted to ask you, so I am really excited about this return to international play. So they announced this. They got the Four Nations Cup. We're going to the Olympics. I know that you did that, and I just think the U.S. has a potential, kind of like the World Cup with you guys, to go on like a run with Matthews and Kachuk brothers and Hughes brothers. And I mean, are you kind of chomping on the bit a little bit as a USA guy, seeing this return to best on best hockey?
Yeah, I think it was always a good measuring stick for us. I think as we were kind of going through the World Cups and the World Juniors, and there's such a stretch of time that we just were so outplayed by Russia, and Canada could have had 3 great teams from all the players that they had from 88 to 2000 with everybody that they had on their rosters and everything else. So we always felt there was like a bit of trying to catch up to Canada. And I think with expansion, you're tapping into a lot more pools of kids. The growth of hockey has kind of certainly increased over the course of 10 to 12 years in our country alone. So with that, you had the great team with the World Juniors. But yeah, you certainly have a good nucleus of kids that are young that could go on a good little stretch here where this could be the top little run of teams that they ever put together.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a decade of dominance. I want
USA hockey.
I want to just be like, I guess hockey's ours now.
Sorry, this is interesting because I think hockey's a slightly different dynamic. Would you? And I don't know that this is entirely a fair question, but I'm still going to ask it. If you had a choice in one season, you could win an Olympic gold medal or a Stanley Cup. Which one would you choose?
A Stanley Cup.
A Stanley Cup. And it's best on best. It's U.S. versus Canada versus Russia, but there's still something just about the Stanley Cup that you're like, I want this. Like, I want to win this. And I think the guys still, they go, they try hard. They want to wear the colors of their country and the jersey, but still the Stanley Cup is like,
Why is that? I mean, it makes sense, but why the Stanley Cup over the Olympic gold?
Well, I think it's always been, for Canadians and Americans, you grow up, you don't grow up to play so much in the Olympics because it was never part of our, I guess our growing up. Obviously we watched 80 what happened, but that was, totally an anomaly. It kind of came out of nowhere. And so for us, you want to go to college, you want to play World Juniors in Canada, then you want to make the NHL. I think it's the European thing is like these kids, I think a lot of them, if you ask them, would you rather win a World Championships or gold or Stanley Cup? I think Stanley Cup might be third on those
on their list.
On that list. And certainly they come over, they enjoy the NHL game, they make it, a ton of money. There's no real, I guess input to better the game from I think the European base. I think they come over, they have a good time, they make some money, they go back to wherever they come from. But if they win a cup, great. Oh well,
doesn't define them.
Yeah, if those guys have a Olympic medal or World Championships, I mean, they're certainly looked upon as we would over here winning the Stanley Cup. So
it's a lot harder.
You could probably ask a Russian that, and they'd say they'd hands down probably say gold medal, for sure. I think it's just different, a different dynamic. I think you're right. In North America, it's Stanley Cup, but
for those guys, they grew up watching the Russian Red Army dominate world hockey, the Swedes, the Czechs. I mean, they just grew up in that kind of that world, and us over here, we're not introduced to that until we're in our 20s and well into our NHL career that we're through into the Olympics. So it was really, second or third on our list at that time. But as the whole international scene became more relevant, we always felt leading up to the World Cup in '96, like this was our moment, best moment ever.
We got
to win something. We had our lineup was as solid as that ever going to get for a long time until probably coming up for the Olympics now here coming up. But
that's what it reminds me of, that when you guys were kind of the kids of the Miracle era, that generation, the whole Modano, Tkachuk, Billy G, that whole group. Now, I really look at this Matthews, the Tkachuk sons, hilariously. I mean, it feels like it could be fun.
Yeah.
Like kind of what you did in the World Cup of Hockey. I hope we get to do that. I would love to rub Canada's nose in it.
Yeah, I think there's something, it's harder to play in the Olympics, but I think it's, and I've never played, so this could be an asinine comment, but I think it's an easier tournament to win than the Stanley Cup. So
for sure.
Still Stanley Cup. It's easier to play for a Stanley Cup, but it's harder to win, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Even for us going to Japan, it's a quick turnover. You get on a flight, you go to Japan, you got maybe a day to practice in Nagano, and then we start. You really never get your legs under you until you're in the quarterfinal, and you're like, it's lose or go home. So we got bumped fast in Japan, and we thought we had a better team maybe than the World Cup in '96. But then you come to Salt Lake, the travel's easy. You get into Utah at a good time. You have a couple days. You're not acclimated to the travel going over, across the world. So, and being at home, you got Herb Brooks coaching us in '02. So, I mean, this whole thing was just a lot of little stories within the big one. So, and then Torino, again, you go over to Italy, you really, it's a weird time change. Games aren't showed over here a lot live. They're taped, so it was a hard sell for us when we'd go to Europe.
Hey, should we load him in properly? I know he's HOF.
Yeah,
but
I want to.
We still got.
Are we talking rapid fire?
Yeah,
let's get there. I want to ask one last question on that, because the World Cup of Hockey was at '96. That was like the bloodbath where it was just like play with your head up. Is that the one?
So
was
good.
it '96?
It was prison rules. I
mean,
mean,
that's what it was. It's like play at the Coliseum in Rome. Like just you don't even need
like
skates. It's just
last
whoever
man
comes.
Standing. I mean,
there's a documentary about it. It's awesome. Go on YouTube and just look up this World Cup of Hockey doc. It's just so good. That's the Cowboys.
Did you guys know it was going to be like that?
No, we didn't because we were playing. We had a game in New York. All our games around the cities were sellouts, but we got to Philly. It was a best of three. We figured our best chance to maybe win a game early would be in Philadelphia, and we lost in overtime. So we're like, we got to go to the old Montreal Forum and win 2 in a row. In that country and that whole thing and that whole team. I mean, God, they had Gretzky, Messier. I mean, you go right down Sakic. I mean, it was just a phenomenal Lindros, a phenomenal lineup, and
Adam Foote, like big guys on the back end,
just
and
nasty. And it was just it was a chop fest. It was just cross checks and hooks and.
Who are the guys on the U.S. that would just do what needed to be done? That's got to be like Chelios. Like, who are the guys just?
Was
finding-
Garen,
Garen was
Kachuk?
out, and Garen and Keith are my line mates.
So you were safe.
So
No one's going to get you.
I'm picking up stuff every shift, like, oh, here's your gloves. They're fighting, and Keith got kicked out, I think, early in one game, but he got cross-checked from Lindros in the back of the neck. And
No, it was two-handed, I think.
yeah, I mean, it was just vicious, and Billy and Keith were just so wound up. I mean, they were just,
Rabid dogs
Just-
just on a bone.
salivating, just going at it, and they just wanted to kill him. And Ron Wilson, he was orchestrating this thing, and he's hitting everybody's buttons. But Chelly was, one of those guys, but everybody played really, as far as team toughness. We kind of hung in there, and Canada, their MO is run you to death and intimidate you with all
Yeah, and they had Claude Lemieux.
the Hall of Famers and the names and Waugh and Brodeur and Net and you just go on through the list and boy, and then Suter laid out Gretzky in one of those games, the first game, and so then we just got on a roll. Richter was just, I mean, hands down phenomenal for the last 2 games, and how we pulled that off him, it was just phenomenal.
Yeah, so great.
Yeah.
That's the best. I think a little hate makes hockey better.
It does,
There was
doesn't
a lot of hate. I mean, it was tons. I mean, it was a slow boil too, and it got into Montreal, and we knew we were just, outcasts in a,
So where do you even go out to eat? So like if you're there, you got the 2 games. Because I went to the game and I was in Salt Lake, but I went to Vancouver too. And Canada beat the U.S. in the gold medal game. And still, we're walking to our car, and people are just in our face screaming at us just because we had USA stuff on, and they had won. I mean, you must have have a food taster before you have your steak or whatever at the Montreal restaurant.
I know. We all went out to dinner as a group. We picked spots and, so that. But then the walk, the old Forum was right near the hotel, so we just walk a block over, and it was like, it was like walking down the gauntlet. you
Yeah.
know. And our guys, Keith and Billy, they just loved it. And they just kind of get antagonized. They get them going, and they just love the fact that we were just in a hostile environment and we're underdogs, and we just kind of fed off that.
God, you were on like a WWE line with Kachuk and Garen.
And then you got Hatcher on the back. He was going ballistic too. So he was just actually just wanting to kill everybody. So when his wires cross, he's kind of one of the more intimidating.
He was pretty
guys
good
too.
at the low breezer cross check.
Yeah.
Get somebody to go to their knees.
Aquarius Home Services is geared up to make your new year absolutely fantastic. Are you ready to transform your water experience in 2024? Just imagine turning on your faucet and excitedly declaring, "I love my water." Enjoy worry-free water right now. And guess what? You won't have to pay a penny until 2025. Say goodbye to spotty dishes, revel in softer hair and skin, and wave farewell to annoying white scale buildups and rust stains. With Connecticut, the world's most efficient water treatment system, you'll get purified drinking water directly from your own faucet, all without the need for electricity. And trust us, you'll be amazed at how little salt you'll need. As your local authorized Connecticut dealer, we're committed to treating you, your home, and your time with the utmost respect. Don't miss out on worry-free water. Aquarius believes in earning the right to be recommended. They're just a click away at aquariushomeservices.com.
Wild on 7th is sponsored by Jimmy's Salad Dressings and Dips. It's dip season, folks. Got the big game on Sunday. Check out all of Jimmy's healthy dips. Maybe show up to that party with a vegetable tray and a bunch of Jimmy's dips. They're local, family-run Minnesota company down in Stewartville, Minnesota. I've even been there and put the hairnet on and checked out the operation. So check out Jimmy's Salad Dressings and Dips. Don't you be messing with my dresser.
So what we do here is to kind of introduce everybody to the listeners is a little rapid fire. of questions. Quick answer. Doesn't need to be in depth. Whatever pops into your mind first, and it's they're not terribly hard.
You can also say pass. This is like going in the sauna for 5 minutes before you like play something. We're just getting you loose, you know. Nickname.
Mo.
First concert.
AC/DC.
Oh, that's strong. What do you listen to in the car?
A lot of 80s.
You have a pet peeve?
White tape on sticks.
We'll get into that. It's your birthday. Where are you going to dinner?
Manny's.
Go-to drink at the bar.
Oh, God. Probably top shelf. Margarita on the rocks with salt.
Nice.
Green light in any NHL city.
Boy. New York City.
Post-game snack.
Post-game snack. Oh. It's either pizza or steak.
Hockey jersey you had as a kid.
Hockey jersey. Daryl Sittler.
You mentioned that you scroll X from time to time. Favorite follow on X? You have somebody that
That I love following? James Woods.
Perfect weekend. What are you doing?
Perfect weekend. Oh, God. It's away from the kids. Probably somewhere warm. Probably Cabo.
How many logins to your Netflix account? So I almost have to preface this one. So like I doubt you're still on your mom and dad's Netflix account.
If you are,
but
that's amazing, by the way.
Some of these players are, and I love this question, but are you on your parents' Netflix account, cell phone account, or how many people you have on yours?
I'm on my own Netflix, and I got 6 others on mine.
6 others on yours. So you can't even watch your own Netflix
No,
account. Too many screens.
Right.
Yeah, that's me.
Last thing you binge watched. It could be a show, movie.
God, what did I just get done watching? Oh, God. I love documentaries. I just watched Schwarzenegger's on Netflix.
Nice. Did you do the We Are the World one? That's good.
I haven't seen that.
It's
I
good.
saw the highlight.
Yeah, you need to watch it.
Okay, I'll check that one out. But I did. Beckham was good.
Yep.
Schwarzenegger was good. So I'm a big doc on Netflix guy.
I'm not a NASCAR guy. I just watched that one on Netflix. I like the miniseries kind of on those. That
Was it F1 or
no, NASCAR has.
Oh,
one.
so they have a new show like the.
Yeah, like the F1. F1's good.
It's
too.
got to be hilarious.
They're great. Yeah, good. Guilty pleasure.
Peanut M&Ms.
Who do you like better, Pat or Joe Micheletti? Who plays you in the movie? Actor.
Who plays me? Oh God. Everybody would say I look like oh God. Oh, what's his name that plays in
Ryan Gosling.
No,
Your face looks like Gosling.
Heater. Is it Heater from Blades of Glory? That was in there with that guy.
Oh, Rob Lowe.
No. He was
Hey,
with,
help us out, Huss.
Will Ferrell. Who's the other guy?
Owen Wilson.
No.
That's what people say I look like because our noses are so crooked.
No.
Huss, help us out.
Not Heater.
Be a producer. Come on. Blades of Glory.
Blades of Glory.
All right, give me a second.
Yeah, we'll be
when
back.
Will Ferrell partners up with the other male actor. What's his name?
This Swayze.
Yeah,
Yeah, John Heater.
John Heater.
John Heater.
he was right. He said heater.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
his name. That's the actor's name.
Yeah.
I don't even know who this is.
I think
John.
people said we looked very identical.
Hey, why number 9?
Well, Detroit obviously with Gordy, and then my dad was a big Bruin fan, so he loved Johnny Buchek, loved the Red Sox. I think Carl Yastrzemski was 9. Ted Williams, a lot of Boston, Detroit influence on 9.
So you just like 9. You had it all along.
Yeah, my first year in Mites, I had 10, and then I went to. I think my first year of Squirts just went to 9, and then everywhere I had went, 9 was gone. I went to Prince Albert. Oh God, what's his name? Dave Pazine was 9. He left Prince Albert, and then I got to Minnesota, and Dennis Maruk left, and so I got 9 when I got here. So it happened. Had a little luck too.
So, what's your golf handicap?
I don't know. It might be going up here since moving here.
I want to get into golf for a minute, a little bit. So, like, married to a professional golfer, which has to take things to a whole nother level. So, a lot of your teams, when you were getting honored, were giving you trips to different legendary courses. But describe your golf game right now. How much do you play? Do you battle it out with the wife? Give us a little lowdown on the Modano golf situation.
I think after we first met, we'd had some good run-ins because I think I wasn't on at the mental level of golf that she was.
Yep.
She kind of went through the college and Q schools and played a little bit of Europe. So her mental, I think approach to the game
kinda?
was much better than mine.
Yep.
I would just kind of get very angry vocabulary and just kind of just wasn't very a technical savvy, I guess. And course management really wasn't, my forte. So I think over time playing with her and learning that, I was like, okay, there's a whole different side of golf that, I probably hadn't tapped into because I was just too
I can't birdie this hole. Maybe I just got to take par.
Yeah. Just punch out. Don't try to hit a low hook from 180 and make a bird, from there and, take your medicine. So I wasn't a good medicine taker at the time. But, going from here to Dallas, it was just an invite to, God, we played all the time. The weather was great. Then we moved to Arizona after I retired, and, that was a whole nother level of golf. So I think when you start playing a lot of golf, you start tinkering, you start looking at things how you do every day, and, it almost becomes, it backfires a little bit on you. So I'm kind of looking forward to maybe taking a winter off like I am and just kind of come into spring, no expectations, just go out there and enjoy it.
So you can get obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's like my brother will be like, I've found these British guys on YouTube and I'm rewiring my swing. It's like February. Like, oh man.
Where does
the TaylorMade guys on British?
Yeah, I think so.
I know that. I've seen them.
He's a mental pretzel.
Where does the albatross at the Tahoe event rank in terms of your athletic achievements?
Right up there
It's pretty sweet.
behind the cup.
Really? It has to be. So what was it, 2 on a par 5? Like that was like what, hole 17 maybe on
That
the
was
final
the 18th.
day? 18?
I was playing with Pavelski and TJ Oshie, and we were just playing god awful that day. We're like, okay, screw it. It's a par 5. It's reachable if you hit a good drive off the tee. It kind of get narrows, big pine trees, so you have to kind of feed it through this little slot though. But if you do, you got a clear lane to the green. It could be a 7, 8, 6 iron, maybe 9 if you really kind of hook it around this tree. But we all just smother hook it into this big pine tree, and they're rattling around. And mine just happens to be, sitting right in this nice little window. So Allison was caddying at the time, so we're debating about it. And I'm like, and the wind comes off the beach, and it's blowing towards this little pond, and the pin's kind of 10 paces off that little pond to the left. And I'm like, well, we'll just play it out to the right and be safe. And, so we're bickering back and forth about it between a 7 and a 6 iron. So finally she said, you don't want to be short. Let's just get there, hit the 6. And I'm like, God, if I hit the 6 really good, it just might just,
Send it.
just fly, you could get a flyer and just go. So I'm like, all right, I'll hit the 6. And so it went off in the air, and I'm like, God, I felt like, God, you caught that one good. And it's just kind of riding, and it's like, okay, I said, we're going to be on the green somewhere. I felt like just watching this thing, and then I lost sight of it. And then all of a sudden, I just hear Oshie just kind of just losing his mind. And
What a great guy to be
I know.
in your group with.
He's hooting and, hollering and just kind of just going nuts. And he starts running up the fairway towards me, and I lost sight of it. And, the crowd starts going nuts, and then Pav and Oshie just come over and start, going crazy. So, but yeah, it was pretty neat. The only one that's ever happened there. So it's
and that's the American Century Classic. It's a fundraiser event in Tahoe.
Yeah.
What weekend is it? Is it the Masters weekend or
4th of July-ish?
it's right after the 4th.
Okay.
So kind of it rolls in between, the 4th and probably the British Open.
So if you haven't seen it, Mike plays in the tournament. You play in it every year.
It's been a long time, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a blast to watch. Like that seems like a fun version of an all-star game where it's just celebrities going out and golfing, but fans have they have great access and guys are into it, and that's what I mean. Before when I was saying like it looks like they actually enjoy it. Like it looks like you guys are actually enjoying your time playing in this.
It's great. They got every night there's an event. The weather's great. I mean, there's so much for the kids and for us, and then. Curry won it this year, and he had to eagle the 18 to win. He was 4 points behind, and you get 6 points for an eagle.
Yeah,
Birdie wasn't
Stableford points.
Stableford. So Birdie wasn't going to do him any justice. So he got on there, and of course he makes the putt.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Ice in his veins.
He goes, yeah, I know. I'm like, of course he's going to drain
Yeah.
that thing. So
Yeah.
but it was a good ending. But yeah, it's a great week. We always
That's a great.
something to look forward to.
I've been in town for that event too. So South Tahoe, it's super small. So it is so fun and weird if you're there. Like you'll be playing craps with Oscar De La Hoya. Hull will be playing blackjack over here. It's just, and you go to the urinal and it's Putty from Seinfeld on one side and Clyde Drexler on the other. Like it's so fun. I mean, because it's a tiny place, right? Karaoke. Barkley will be doing karaoke and it's like you're in a bizarre version of Planet Hollywood from like 25 years ago.
No, it's fun. And Vegas has you as like a favorite usually too, so you're always in contention.
Sort of in the hunt. There's always a day that there's a meltdown that happens and just can't hold it together.
How many holes in one?
Never had one.
No way.
Never had a hole in one.
You're gonna get one this year.
But that's what's crazy. Albatross is more rare.
Yeah, that's harder to do.
Right.
And the par threes are all 140 tops. So I was like, and then 17's the shore, the beach hole, and that's $1 million, and so. They have some pretty good gifts for par threes. And then, Curry makes a par three, a hole in one on a par three where there's no prize.
Oh, fuck.
Of all the holes, he missed out on $1 million and a, brand new Mastercraft.
Did you want to transition to a gear question?
I will. I want to circle back though. So 9's your number, but does it haunt you a little bit? So you played 1499. Is like how do you?
It's a long story.
Yeah, but does this hurt? Is this opening a wound?
No, it does. It does. That final year in Detroit just it did me in. So that was kind of the just of me retiring. I'm like, I was mentally spent after that year in Detroit, and then having to end like that, I was like, I just can't do this, and I'm done.
So it hurt that much that you're like, I'm not coming back for one more game.
Oh, I rehabbed from Thanksgiving to probably 1st of March when Umberger cut, his skate got in my glove and cut all the tendons. So I was like, just on rehabbing in Detroit in the winter, it's like. It's the hardest thing in the world, mentally. It's dark at 3. It's
concrete.
Gray.
It's gray.
Just nasty. The worst roads in the world.
It's like True Detective.
Sun barely comes out for 5-6 months. So I'm like, I'm rehabbing, working out. After the surgery, 2 weeks later, I'm like doing legs and biking, just really kind of gearing towards this, recovery date, which I had. I'm like, okay, talking to the doctor. 1st of March, you got about 14 games left. I go, oh, that's unbelievable. If I play those last 14, I'll hit 1,500 right on the nose. And so we had 2 games left, and he scratched me the Minnesota game at home.
You ever bump into him?
And then I go play in Chicago. Then he plays me the last game just to kind of.
And you're like, I don't even want to play now.
I know. I'd rather be 1498. I was like, man, I couldn't believe it. So.
You ever bump into him since?
I haven't seen him and talked to him since.
Would you talk to him?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
That's just unnecessary.
But then I go back. I'm like, God, we had a full season lockout, a half season lockout. There's another 120 games or so that we missed. And it's like, I don't know. But that just hit a sour note. So I'm like, God, if I probably would have played another year.
Yeah.
But then I look back at it, I should have probably came here.
Yeah.
I could have came here and played, my last year.
That would have been good.
And didn't do that.
Well,
so now I'm like, God, if I had to do it all over again, I would have probably came here.
Well, you still look like you can play. I played in a celebrity game with you last year in White Bear Lake Hockey Day. Yeah, you still got it, man. With the injury rate that this team is on, they might need to sign you out of the.
I can play 7 minutes on the fourth line here.
Right?
Tell Billy
Between the
that today.
Deweys.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I actually want to ask him one more thing quick because you touched on it. For the listeners of the podcast, you touched on Detroit and how in the middle of winter rehabbing, it's tough, it's gray. But then all of a sudden you've had experience in Dallas where it's to the golf course, the sun is out, everything's
I see
great.
where you're going here.
Do you so I have this theory that the Sun Belt states have had success winning cups lately because the season doesn't mentally seem as long to them because they get the sunshine, the vitamin D. Rehabbing in shorts is different than rehabbing in a cold concrete gray dark winter. You think there's any validity to that theory?
I believe so. I think mentally it just gives you these breaks where you can just get away and get outside. Detroit, even here to a point, days off, you're inside. What are you going to do?
Right.
Maybe go ice fishing or snowmobiling. Yeah, but, when you have nice warm weather and you can get out, guys go to rinks and practice with the top down. in their shorts, sandals, whatever. I think mentally it just kind of gives you some type of different approach to the game. You're happier to come to the rink. So I think there's a lot of validity.
So we can get this is what we want to do, okay? Because you're with Billy. You got one of those jobs you can influence some things. So somehow we make the playoffs this year. I don't know how we're going to do it. We got to win about 22 games, I think. Somehow we do that. And then we're going to set up shop down in like Jupiter, Florida. So you just tell the guys, if they pull this off, chip in a chair, they get in, you say, here's the deal. This is Camp Wild. We're down here in Jupiter. We're going to play Tiger's course. We're going to get some nice meals. As long as you keep going, it's all here for you, baby.
Yeah.
Like we got paddle boards. We got paddle boards. We got golf carts. Everybody gets a golf cart. And condos, let's go. Maroon's probably got a restaurant he can recommend. Yeah. And it's just a safe, warm place until the end.
Yeah.
Until
just
16
to get them through.
W's.
Maybe you need to
Do
go
you think
from.
that would improve
maybe you
our
need to
odds?
go from.
That improves our odds, right?
just commute back for the games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Costs some money, but
You need to go from
You can make that in a few home games in the playoffs.
exactly.
maybe trade deadline to the end of the season is when you're on that. So it's like end of the
Oh,
season.
you're saying we got to start earlier.
Yeah,
just
start
to make
earlier
sure,
now.
Just to make sure. I'm down with that. We
But-
might need that.
So now I have a question, maybe bone to pick with you a little bit. I grew up watching,
Oh, boy.
idolizing you, and now I'll tell the whole story real quick. So I'm playing college hockey. I play professionally. College hockey, we still had like the retail sticks. So I was an Easton guy, and I liked the synthesis. So it was a 2-piece with the Aginla curve. And then I get to the NHL, and I was like, that's what I want. They're like, we don't have that. You can't get that anymore. I was like, well, okay, synergy. I'll get the Modano curve. And they're like, yeah, okay, we'll get that. So this is, hold on.
Pro stock.
I didn't realize this. It's pro stock. So what shows up in my stall is this stick. This, I think, is this your curve? Take a look at this bad boy.
So that's what.
Skinniest blade all time. Like, I think it was your actual stick. So I ordered the Modano, and the rep was like, yeah, here you go. I wanted the retail Modano, and he gave me your actual stick.
That is it.
This is it.
That's what you played with.
you put.
For a little while. Yeah. I kind of it's been a kind of a evolution of things, but yeah, this used to be when I first left Minnesota, it was probably
A little longer than that?
long, and it kind of went up. It had that little taper feel, but then I started shaving it down, and then I took the length off, and then it came to this thing, and guys are like, I don't know, but then it morphed into a little bigger blade. I got bigger and longer, as you get older, and,
Yeah. So-
but that is for a few years, that's what I went with.
For those of you listening, this is this is the skinniest blade. Imagine you were playing street hockey,
For 7 years on a gravel driveway.
and the blade is about that tall, and you'd have to have the hands of Mike Modano to be able to catch a pass in the NHL
And we're
on
at-
Dallas ice with this stick. It's like, how did he do it? So I had this stick, and my face-off percentage, like my first year, was like nil. So I have to go back to the stick guy, and I'm like, hey, man, I need some help here. So this is version 2, and I was like, you just got to beef that blade up. It has to be
there you
taller.
go. That's
So then he
better.
beefed it up a little bit.
Is that
for me.
still a Modano curve, though?
It was the curve,
Yep.
pretty much the curve.
Yeah, that's
But
better.
a little bit taller.
Yep,
But-
that's good.
Yeah. So
But
I
yeah,
did, that was my introduction to retail sticks are not what he actually uses.
But he said he does use it. That's even more
Well, he used
amazing.
this one. He didn't use the retail one. You know the retail Modano?
Yes.
You didn't use that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That was a round toe.
Yeah, it was just kind of. I think they just
That was like your standard.
manufactured a bunch, just
Kids like this.
Yep.
Most kids will like this curve. This is what they should be using.
right down the middle. Everybody can use it.
You're the GOAT. We're going to put your name on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dallas.
So that's what I ordered.
Dallas,
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted, and they sent me this.
Reunion ice.
I could
on
have been.
That stick
I
was
could have
not
been.
good.
I could have been a first line player if they would have sent me like the actual Modano. Instead, I was catching passes.
How did you
off that
do
thing.
when you played with that stick? How was your performance compared to the rest of your career?
Single digit points.
Terrible, huh?
Oh yeah, but it had nothing to do with the stick. As Lou Lamoriello says, it's the sticker. It's not the stick. It was me. But that was kind of funny. But
But we had the worst ice in the league, and that's what
In
I used.
Dallas.
I'm like, oh, the ice was good for the first 3 minutes, and then we're like, boy, and Zubov had a stick that was probably thinner, almost identical to that, and I'm like, I don't, we just weren't very smart with, but that's what we did. I'm like,
And you won face-offs.
Yeah, it was. It started working, and I don't know, just it was a crazy,
Good hand-eye coordination, good eyes. You've been working on them still lately.
I think it was a 3 or 4 or 5 year kind of experiment with that blade because I started messing around with it and it just got too small. I kept shaving it down, and then we kind of come back to something bigger and a little bit more consistent.
I think this is a good transition into this card here. So we've got a nice little card, and your style is always on point. I think you've got some nice hair coming out the back.
Yeah,
here,
I want
John.
to get pretty deep into.
But before we do, we'll finish on the stick because your pet peeve was white tape on the stick.
I know.
And you had it for a bit.
I know.
And you had the old. This is the aluminum. So we're looking at a card. We'll show it for social clips. But what is that? The gold Easton.
Yep.
Aluminum.
Yep.
With a wood blade, white tape, great mullet out the back. Like
I think that was probably our last year here because they got rid of the N. We had the stars thing. It was the 75th anniversary patch on it. So that was kind of when the writing was on the wall that we were heading out. So
they were preparing us for divorce.
Yep.
Like, why does it look like the shape of Texas?
But that was the white tape. That was, I think there was maybe 2 or 3 games I did white tape, and that happened to be one of them.
And my favorite part is you're like all those young kids out there with this Easton aluminum because it was unbreakable. But if you shot enough and you shot hard enough with it, you'd get like a little bend in the aluminum stick. So then you just flip it upside down, and then you'd bend it the other way. So this one was actually upside down. So it's in there. So equipment guys,
when you start shooting against that bow part,
watch out.
It would come off hot.
Yeah. Yeah, Kinger, that's right. We are building something special on this podcast. And speaking of building special things, Wild Construction, well, they know a thing or two about that. They specialize in roof repair, storm damage, and though it isn't storm damage repair season, even though it hasn't felt like winter at all, it's 50 degrees in February, they can still help. They're not going to jump on the roof and assess it, but it can take up to a year for some damage to show up. So over the winter season, some things have happened. Give them a call. They'll put you on their list. They'll get to you right when the weather changes, and they can get on top of the roof. But in the meantime, if you're noticing poor insulation around the windows, leaky doors, different things like that, they can help you out. Give them a look. It's wildconstructionmn.com.
Wild on 7th is sponsored by Cub. Cub's the best. They're one of us. They love sports. They're on the Homer Hanky for the Twins. They're on PJ Flex headset. They sponsor Wild on 7th. If you want the best local products, fresh products, whether you need a liquor store, fresh milk, it's all at Cub. They even deliver at Cub.com. Cub, they're one of us. They're awesome. Cub. So I heard this is a super, we got to get into Mighty Ducks too, of course, the really heavy hitters. But I had heard that when you were in that 75th era, just nasty hockey. Whenever you see that 75th anniversary year, you know Hatcher's like knocking someone to their knees. I had heard you had a nickname, which was the Face, because basically no one could get you. You know, good-looking guy. No one ever really. I know you did get hit into the boards eventually, but like, was that ever a thing? Like you were known as like the Face?
I don't know. I
kind of like a young blood type guy.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. I had some real tough guys
around you
from day one. Churla, McRae, it morphed into Hatcher. I think Gord Donnelly was with us for a short stint. Alan May. God, you just go down the list. We just had some, my times in junior, I had Ken Baumgartner, Darren Kimball, Reed Simpson. It was just. I was just lucky to have a lot of.
You had some backup,
some heavyweight that just could, go head to head with anybody, and so I was pretty lucky.
So where do you sit on like this new school, Michigan goal, TikTok hockey? Because you were a skill guy, you had tough guys around you, but you played in a super tough era. When you see all the kind of stick move stuff going now, are you more old school like? Man, if somebody did that in my era, they wouldn't make it to the bench, or do you kind of think it's just the evolution of the game?
I think you kind of, wish that was part of, involved in the game when you were playing.
Yeah, because you could have done all that.
Very creative and fun, and the game's so fast. It really is. It's just so. It's a drag meet. It's up down, and the kids, evolve so fast. I mean, they're at 8, 9 doing stuff that, at 8 and 9 we didn't really even try to, experiment with. So, and these kids are able to adapt and roll right into the NHL because they're all fast. It's not a big man's game anymore. If you can skate and move, the skill level, is so high. But yeah, I mean, just the creativity, Zegras and all these guys and, the whole thing, it's just, to do that on the fly in the middle of the game. I mean, it's fun to watch, but yeah, there's a part of you saying, God, if I tried to pull that off when I was playing, I probably would have got killed by my own guys.
I can remember Pronger saying like, yeah, you could try something like that against me. And if you pulled it off, good for you, but I'm probably going to break your arm at some point over the course of that game.
Just the fact of going for empty netters from your own end. I'm like, if we ever tried to do that, we wouldn't see the ice again. It was like chip it out, get it out, and get the red line, dump it in. Yeah. Don't ever go for an empty net until you got the red line. And I'm like, guys are firing it from their own goal line. I'm like, and that's the whole analytics side is like, I kind of get, I get wishy-washy about analytics too. I'm like, I just, it's hard to measure everything by numbers. At some point, it's got to give.
Yeah, the old school is kind of just ingrained in you a little bit. It's like it's got to pass the eye test first, then the analytics will play a role.
Absolutely.
I like that he said if he would have tried that stuff, his own guys would have killed him. Yeah, because they would have had to protect him.
I shot for an empty net in my own zone, and I missed, and we had to face off. Oh, boy, it would have been ugly.
Hey, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, that's a good segue into. I'm curious, like, where you see the game is today. It's faster. It seems like more skilled. Do you think it's missing anything? Like, what's your synopsis of today's game?
I don't think it's missing a thing. But as you go into playoffs, it's the same type of game that will win a Stanley Cup as 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, sure.
It's tight check-in. It kind of gets nasty as the rounds progress and you get to the finals. It's very, there's not a lot of space. The checking gets better. There's a lot of more detail to what happens, and the physicalness picks up, the hitting, so you see a lot of what you see in 80 games slowly kind of dissipate as the playoffs kind of get ramped up. It's that old, value that, good tight defense, good goaltending is going to win you a Stanley Cup. It's not, you're not going to win a 6-4, 6-5 game. You don't see those in the finals or maybe the conference final games. It's still, that foundation of tight, no space checking is still there. But, for the other 80 games, it's just high end octave, just up and down. But, the teams that do well in playoffs or have those runs, they still have a little bit of that style in the game. When the game's on the line, it's time management, it's understanding the clock, what's the score, shot blocking, good special teams, those things, those teams that have that throughout 80 games, they seem to have a little better success in the spring.
Yeah, and let's talk offense too, because there was like an era where offense was hard to come by. Guys would get 100 points and then it went away for a while, went down to like 75, 80 would be highest in the league. Now it's back up to 120. For over your course of your career, you think that you'd have more points if you played in today's game or like in your era?
It's hard to say because I think a little bit prior to my era, starting in 89, 90, I think the goalies from 80 to 90 were horrendous. They're the worst athlete on the team. Yeah. They're tiny, out of shape. They weren't butterfly goalies because if they go down, there's tons of net to look at. So a lot of them were stand-up kind of goalies. And so
kickers.
You look at, the years Wayne scored 90 and Hully 80. I mean, they're just horrendous goaltending.
Yeah.
I mean,
not to take shot away on the ice from the blue line will go in.
Not to take away from their, those records, but I mean, God, I don't think, no one's going to sniff, 80 goals or 70 goals in a season anymore. The goalies are too big. They're too athletic.
Everybody else is too big, too athletic.
Yeah. And so, and then you had, back then you didn't have the most mobile defensemen in the 80s. So Mario, Yzerman, Wayne, they could just kind of sift through these guys, with ease. So, and then, there's been, then the rule changes, the goalie equipment, the goalies got bigger. How do you create more scoring? But, it's funny, all sports, you have this little lull, but then players figure it out. And then there's like this jump again where now they're rifling off points it's skill. It's the goalies are still as big and talented, but players somehow find a way.
Figured it out.
Yeah, they find loopholes and they find ways to do it.
So, who was your favorite coach ever?
I think after I retired, I'd probably say Hitch, but in the middle of it, I didn't like Hitch. He was very, very like diligent. Day in and day out, just drilling it hard into your system and your psyche. It's just repetition, day in and day out. And so, realize at the moment what is this? What are we getting to? And you're asking me to kind of not change my game, but add to it and play defense and do this whole thing without any guarantees. You're not you're just trusting this guy to think that things will get better if you just buy into this type of system and I didn't really have anything to lose at the time. I was 26, 27 when he came in, and I felt we were just kind of floundering. We weren't really kind of making big impacts on our team in Dallas, and he came in and changed the whole I guess the spectrum of the team, how we approached, how we played, players we brought in, the certain trades we made that were just phenomenal trades and free agent signings, and so it did pan out, but we talk at least 2 or 3 times a month, still with Ken,
And he's got that great voice, right? Like
Yeah.
the high voice.
It seems like a lot of guys don't like him for short periods of time, but in the end, learn to really love this guy.
But then I look back, I'm like, I'm thankful that he was around at the time he was around, because I don't think I would have got out of the game that I did if he wasn't there. To push you and just try to, make you a better player. He wanted the best for you individually, and he knew collectively that would be a good thing for all of us, So, we did go on our stretch of runs in our division and conference and the cups and stuff like that. But, I think hands down, I don't think I've ever seen a guy more to get his players prepared for any game than him.
Yeah. So let's tie that to the Wild. Have you been any coaching changes like mid-season that you played through, lived through, experienced?
This Hitch when Bob Gainey stepped down and Ken came in. That was the only time that I've had that experience. So yeah, it was usually you waited to the end of the year, but Bob was a smart man. So he felt he was losing touch. So. Hitch was kind of exactly what we needed at that particular time.
Can you recall, like, did you get like a short-term bump? Like, what was it different? Like, does it like a wake-up call?
Yeah, it was kind of maybe, I don't really know if it was after the All-Star break, but he came in probably the last month and a half. So we didn't make the playoffs that year, so we knew that, it was going to be when the season was over, we were going to restart, reset the button and get ready for camp. So at that point on, when the season was over, it was just, he started calling me 2 weeks after the season, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to approach the year. And it was still April, so it was already, he was already planting in your brain that you start thinking
get ready
about,
for this.
This is coming down the pipe, so be ready. And so, it was, but, I like that. He challenged you, you're going to start playing against the other team's top players. I'm like, well, you're going head-to-head against Yzerman and Sakic and, Fedorov and Gretzky and all these guys. So it made coming to the game in the rink exciting, because you knew, boy, you're going to play some of the best players in the world that, you need to be ready and prepared. And so it helped push you for sure.
I was going to ask you, when you kind of look at the Wild this year, and what do you see? Like, who jumps out at you, and what do you think? Coming back, the West is down a little bit. You can still sneak in there. It looks like the modeling is less points than last year. Were you ever a part of a group that had to defy the odds? And maybe you didn't start the way you wanted and you had to scramble. Like, what kind of advice would you give to make this push?
Well, I think you never feel like you're mathematically out of it until, probably even mid-March, if things don't go your way. And, obviously this situation is where you need some help around you. You need other teams. You look at LA, they were just, we had them pegged to win the division. Now, they might their last wild card spot. I think at this point, so things can change in an instant. But to go up this, it can go this way fast.
Go
and
down
going this
fast.
way, it takes a lot of work, and you need a lot of help around you. But you have to approach it that you're just gonna try to eat up as many points as you can and just see what happens. Because if you just get in, that's the thing. Just getting in,
It's so much better. It's the
yeah,
best.
I mean, from top to bottom, from 1 seed to 8, that whole thing. There's really not too much discrepancy between the 2 top teams. It's just a couple wins here and there. You could be in first, or you could be in 6th or 7th. But just to get in, you can just, you never know. Something could happen. Just ignite something. You
Catch fire at the right time,
you
and
get on a run. We go back to even our run in '91 here. It was like we got in at, I think, 67 points we had that year.
Nice.
There was no overtime, obviously, and you got 1 point for ties, but still we had to win a last of our games to get in, and and then you never know. You just get in, and it could be anybody guess. Top teams someone always gets knocked off. Someone's just not ready. Boston makes a run last year, win the most games in the season. They get knocked out. So it's
happened to Tampa a few years before that with number 1 seed President's Trophy. And it was
President's Trophy.
Columbus.
They always stumble.
You've had more 3-1 deficits where teams come back now in the last little while. So it's never never a guarantee anymore.
So I got to ask you, CCM Tax, because now you're working in the same organization as Wes Walls. Was there ever any competition between the two of you for the last couple pairs of tax? Did you have to send them hate mail or anything?
No, I just had the really sweet Mark Baraboo really bad. So he was my rep at the time, but I just begged him just to make me 5 pair. I had a 5-year deal I just did in Dallas. I said, make me 5 pairs. You'll never hear from me again, because they were kind of transitioning to
Out of that skate.
this new model, and it was just I just was a creature of habit. I just had the skate thing was my thing. Anything else I could switch. Maybe stick was my thing too, but skates and sticks. And so I begged Mark just to make me 5 pair. I wear 1 a pair a year. I'm like, 5 years, I'm going to be done. I'm not going to be around. So just. But Wes and I just joke about it because and he was a hard guy to play against. He was annoying. He could skate. Good little smart guy out there, and I found he was more tougher for me to play against because he could skate really well.
Yeah.
And good face offs. But we have an ongoing thing that I might be due to go to Pure Hockey and get a new pair of skates.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, love that. So what model was it? The tax?
Man, I can't remember.
I can't either.
I can't remember. But they're like 5 pounds.
They're boots.
I mean, holding these new skates.
They're
like
boots with
nothing.
steel on the
Yeah.
bottom.
I mean, and I had the old ICM white skates. Blades on them,
Yep.
so that was about 1 pound.
Yeah.
And the boot was like 3, and if it gets wet, I mean, it was just crazy. So
were you always a good skater too, or did you have to work on it? Like I whenever anybody asks me these days, I say skating's the number 1 skill in hockey, but I think a lot of people get lost on like stick skills and different stuff. But skating,
yeah,
and I feel like you were ahead of the curve. Like you're a great skater before skating great was a thing.
I was a big advocate of it. I liked power skating. I liked just having a right sequence, the right timing, how my feet and blades work. I was a real wide skater when I was young. Started going to power skating, and my strides started coming in more, so I could get more push. So I was a big advocate of this just skating, and I did everything in practice with a puck. It drove hitch, gave me nuts, because if we got bag skated, I skated with a puck. Warm ups, everything was a puck. So if I could skate fast with a puck, that was half the battle. A lot of guys can skate like the wind without a puck. You give them a puck, it seems to slow down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a big advocate. Everything with a puck. Skate, stop, start, because you get a lot tired having to push a puck around when you get skated at practice.
2 hands on the stick is hard.
Yeah, bent over, stick handling, stop, start, the whole thing. But I was a big fan of that. It drove everybody nuts. But, I mean, today the edge work guys do the whole thing, and then I got tinkering with my hollow. I changed my hollow out to 1 inch, and my radius was more steel on the ice, so that helped a little bit. So you had a little bit more glide. Able to get off over more beat up ice better. But I started tinkering about that in the early '90s. We had training camp in Pittsburgh, and Steve Lattin, the equipment guy for Pittsburgh, did Paul Coffey skate. He goes, oh, let me do your skate like Coffey. And it felt like it was right out of the box.
Really?
I was like sliding around. I had no grip. He goes, it's sharp and it's an inch. And I was like, after a few weeks, I was like, I couldn't do.
Yeah.
I loved it. So that changed my whole skating thing a little bit too. So, but yeah, I tinkered with the stride a lot, but today's way these kids skate and then the whole edge thing and the
Mohawk.
the whole thing, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
What would you tell a young? I mean, you were famous for the jersey flap and the way you skated, and I'm assuming maybe your kids are playing now. What would you tell young kids today to get that stride? If skating's the most important skill, what kind of advice would you give?
It's a monotonous kind of technique, and kids don't like that. It's trying to create something fun out of something that they're benefiting and working at, and they're actually getting better at it. So that's the trick that you have to play with the kids. And to skate with no puck, it's like playing basketball with no ball or football with not a ball. So it's like you have to kind of trick their mind of thinking they're getting better, and they're having fun at the same time, but they're improving and the technique. But that's the thing with kids. It's just hard to kind of hone them in because they want to stick handle, they want to make moves, they want to kind of like this whole thing. And it's like, if you can skate, that's more than half the problem. If you can get moving up and down and, trying to teach them technique and try to use their toes and, coming out of corners, crossover, the whole thing, that's a hard sell to kids. It's just really difficult to kind of get that in their brain. But if you can, that's all power to you.
Last one from me. Are you aware of the pranks going on in the Wild locker room? Kind of like Fleury pranking Duhaime, and Duhaime trying to get Fleury back, and 50 years old, Kane on the ice. Any memorable pranks from your days that were pulled off? Now, I should tell one quick story. So when you first got the gig, I don't know if it was first when you first got the gig, but you're working with the Wild and you're in the office, you have a presence, and then the I think it's the 2003 Men's Fitness magazine. Somebody had put it on poster board, and it was all over the office with your stuff on it. One, were those abs airbrushed or are those real? Two, have you been involved in any other good pranks?
That was certainly airbrushed, so that was good. And I know it was Billy Guerin, so I need to get him back. So and for me to help him get hired, and then he pulls that off.
Sure.
So he'll get one at some point. Pranks, man. It was just back then. It was heartless. These guys were just ruthless guys, and oh boy.
So I heard one. So you played with Marty Turco, obviously.
Yep.
Turco supposedly pranked Matt Niskanen. So he was a Minnesota guy. He's from Virginia, Minnesota, and he drove like an old car down. He's playing the NHL. He's got a beat up car. So they went and had his car when they were on a road trip picked up. And remember the show Pimp My Ride?
Yeah.
And they had his ride pimped. So he comes back from the airport and he's got like this fancy pimped out car, but it was like I don't know, it was like, let's say, I can't remember the name of the car, but like picture like a Volkswagen Jet or something like that, all pimped out. But were guys like that, Marty Turco, dudes like that funny? Like, does that help in the locker room?
Yeah, Mike Keane, Brian Screwlin, those guys were just classic guys, and a lot of it, some of it was back when we started getting the toaster, the toast, peanut butter, that sort of thing. A lot of guys would bring in donuts or something, and Hitch loved the donuts, and so Mike Keane was just terrible. So he would take a lot of the plain donuts and dip them into paraffin wax.
Oh, really?
And just the top of the donut.
Yeah.
Pull it out, let it dry. It looks like it's a glazed donut.
Yeah.
And Hitch would come in here and just rifle these donuts, and he would just.
He still buried them even with the wax. It was like
halfway through, and like, and they would keep happening, and he wouldn't catch on. So I mean, these guys, but Mike Keane was by far one of probably the funniest guys I've ever played with, and Mike Kennedy was playing with us a little bit, and Mike Kennedy was probably 2 years into it, but he acted like he was his 12th or 13th year into it.
Sure.
So Mike wasn't a big fan. So, Mike drove with a lot of, to the rink with a sunroof that was open. So Mike Keane would take that popcorn popping stuff, put in boxes and fill up that car through the sunroof.
Yeah.
And so, so Mike, thought he'd get him back. He took his keys because everybody's parked out there and they got the keys. So they took his keys. Mike took his car up to this little strip mall thing and parked diagonal right in the handicap spots, right in the front. So he had a big sign, I'm not, heck with the handicap,
Yeah.
So, the cops show up. They tow this thing. Mike Keene's he's on a whole nother level. So he is just kind of like going to make the rest of this year for this kid a living hell. And it was everything from.
That's kind of how we feel Duhame's going to get treated here.
Well, I love your era. Like the pranks were like, and then they just took the car and smashed it.
I think every road trip.
They didn't understand. Like,
Yeah.
well, I'll get them back.
And we had to dress, kind of nice for pregame skates. You still had to wear your dress shirt,
Yeah.
pants. It wasn't like golf shirt, whatever, come in casual. So that's, every road game, Mike would cut the sleeves off Kennedy's
Shirt.
dress shirt to the point where Mike just started wearing his dress shirt
Without sleeves?
without sleeves. I mean,
That's great.
because he didn't want to go buy it. And he's like, okay, if he's going to cut, I'm just going to wear it.
Yeah, what do
Oh, I mean, it'd go on. And, Hitch was a big opponent of getting pranks.
Yeah,
he loved it. He just thought that was great. The
Yeah.
guys, are getting together. They're coming together as a team.
Right.
They're hating me instead of each other.
Right.
This is working out great.
Yeah.
So it was comic relief.
Yeah, good.
I just want to finish Mighty Ducks. Great performance. I mean, I thought you were snubbed. Basil carried it. I mean, you were more a supporting actor. I feel like Basil would have been lead actor. But how did that come together? And is that the gift that keeps on giving? Like you still like randomly, it's just so solid. It's like the hockey version of Bad News Bears.
It is.
What's the
It is.
backstory on that?
I think it was about 2 weeks before. I think I want to say we a couple weeks before the end of our 90, 91 season, maybe 92. I think it was the year after our finals and everything else that, we got contacted that they were trying to do this cameo of some North Stars for this movie that they're doing in Emilio Estevez. I mean, I was familiar with Emilio Estevez, but, that was kind of the extent of it. So, Baz and I got talked about it. But then prior to the playoffs, we went on strike.
Okay.
That particular spring. So no one was allowed in the rink except Baz and I to kind of shoot this deal. So we're like, they're prepping us. It's going to probably take, 6-7 hours to do this scene. We're going to have extras. They're coming off the ice. You're going to meet them, blah, blah, blah. So they're kind of setting this thing, and we get there early and go through our lines. And so I was supposed to have Basil's line.
Oh, you buckled?
Oh, yeah. So we go through this thing about 4 or 5 times. I am just totally butchering this thing and spitting it out. And it's like, take. They're like, okay, let's take a little break. They come back. Okay, we're going to flip-flop.
Yeah. They're like, you say the farmer
You're
thing.
North Star 2 and Baz is North Star 1. I'm like, perfect. I'm just going to stand there and say, my 5 lines, my 5 words, and that was it. So it was, I think I get more kids saying you were in the Mighty Ducks than I do you played in the NHL at this point.
That's so
the
great.
transition of,
It's just so pure, man. I just watched it this morning again. It's just so great. I love that you went from North Star 1 to North Star 2. Like Basil must have loved that. Like gets home, he's like, man, Modo was just rattled. I had to
he
carry
still
him.
gives it to me. He goes, God, you remember when I had to take over for you again, babysitting you and Mighty Ducks? But it turned into a cult, that movie. I mean, it's lasted, I don't know, 30-something years now. And we just did this Once Upon a Time in Anaheim when that whole, that documentary about that, how they came about.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we almost went to Anaheim for the North Stars at that time. Anaheim was one of the cities that was kind of, circled for us to leave to. And, then Disney stepped in and Eisner and that whole thing changed. So, but yeah, it turned into unbelievable, experience, and to this day it's just still talked about. We still get a residual check every once in a
Nice.
while.
Mailbox money?
Yeah, it's about $15, but
That's good.
It's pretty good
That's
back
good.
in '91, but it's kind of tailed off. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things that's kind of
That's
stuck
awesome.
around. I can't believe it's held up this test of time. So it was pretty cool.
Basil McRae, no relation to Tate McRae. Is there? I don't know. Maybe somewhere. He's not from Calgary, is he, Basil?
No, I think he's a Toronto kid.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Something to explore further.
Right.
Well, appreciate having you and giving us some time.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have you on at some point. I think I got a dozen more questions on here. There's so much
haven't
meat
even
on
tapped
this.
into
bone.
it.
Yeah, this is great.
This is
so
part of it.
appreciate it, man. You're
it.
the best. Yeah.
No, you guys are great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
You got it. Thank you.